Okay, good evening and welcome to the Red Hook Town Board meeting of Tuesday, January 14th, 2024. Would you be kind enough to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much, everyone. For the folks at home, if you'd be kind enough to pan over to the big screen, we can let them know what we'll be discussing tonight. We do have a continuation of a public hearing on local law D. We expect to hold that over and continue it until the 29th of this month. And we will have some discussion on that as agenda item number 2. We have a quick reorganization resolution. We will not be looking at populating and repopulating committees and departments tonight. We will take that up later on in the month as well. We have a very brief presentation by our town engineer. Brandy Nelson is with us once again. Hello, Brandy, to discuss with us the potential for creating not one, but perhaps even 2 new water districts in the township. A couple of resolutions related to the next community solar project, which is underway at Cookingham West Solar, and I want to remind everybody, because we often read inaccurate information, this is not on farmland or land that has been farmed on the Cookingham property. It's on just a couple of acres that the soil was mined many, many decades ago. And so it's on a separate parcel, not the farm parcel related to Cookingham. We have each year, we have an agreement with the Highway Department as to the expenditure of those highway monies and what the monies should be used for capital projects. We'll be discussing a couple of grant opportunities, CDBG, and potentially a local government efficiency grant. We have a resolution to approve extension of the PANDA IMA, that's the public access of Northern Dutchess. And for the folks at home, we'd like to let you know that finally, after years of working with Spectrum, PANDA is back on cable TV. At the moment, it's channel 1303. If you are having difficulty sleeping at night, I highly recommend watching one of our town board meetings from the comfort of your home. So that's 1303. We are working with Spectrum to see if we could also get it back on channel 23 as well, since that channel is not occupied at the moment. We have some other administrative stuff to take care of as it relates to the employee health care plans, and authorizing some supplemental funding for the Saltkill Bridge. As you know, we obtained a grant and then we obtained some additional funding for that bridge. And then we're going to discuss battery energy storage systems and what we need to do, next steps to put in place some code provisions as it relates to that. With that being said, we are a few minutes past 7:35, so we'll come back and we'll deal with the supervisor and clerk's report. Why don't we at this moment, however, tackle the public hearing notice for local law D. And Deanna, if you would be kind enough to read the notice, please.
Notice of public hearing, Town of Red Hook. Please take notice that a public hearing will be held by the Town Board of the Town of Red Hook on January 14th, 2024 at 7:35 p.m. local time at the Town Hall, 7340 South Broadway, Red Hook, New York, to hear all interested persons on a proposed local law number D-2 proposed of 2024 entitled Local Law number D-2 proposed of 2024, a local law updating and amending the town zoning law, has been submitted to the Town Board of the Town of Red Hook. The proposed local law, the Town Board has classified the action as Type 1 action and declared its intent to serve as lead agency for the matter. All interested persons will be given an opportunity to be heard at said hearing. All reasonable accommodations will be made for persons with disabilities. In such case, please notify the town clerk in advance. Please take further notice that copies of said proposed local law are available for review at the Town Hall, 7340 South Broadway, Red Hook, New York, by order of the Town Board of the Town of Red Hook, dated December 30th, 2024. Deanna Cochran, Town Clerk, Town of Red Hook.
Very good. Thank you very much, Deanna. At this time, I'd like to make a motion that we open the public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Bill. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is there anybody who would like to speak on this topic? Lori, please, if you'd be kind enough to come to the microphone and just let the public know your name, that's all you need to give.
Sure. Hi, council people. I'm Lori Urban, resident of your town. And I have sent all of you an email, regarding my opinion on the zoning regulations. So I'm just here to make that public, which I appreciate the opportunity to do. So your local law D2 is the version we're at now, is a revised document. There was some original zoning proposed, there was some comments, and then we went from a less restrictive zoning suggestion from a more restrictive zoning suggestion. So I am here to tell you that my opinion is that we don't need super duper loose or easy zoning with regard to cannabis dispensaries. And I think my main point is this zoning is not being considered in a vacuum. So we have in the town of Red Hook a cannabis dispensary right across the street that's open and operating. We have for sure an additional cannabis dispensary coming into the village of Red Hook where the Keels equipment was operating. So we have one existing, another for sure coming, and I would like you to think about in a village of 2,000 people, in a town of 10,000 people, maybe that's a healthy start for people who are interested in marijuana dispensaries. Perhaps we don't need to encourage more marijuana dispensaries. Do we really need like 3 or 4 of them? And then ultimately, if that direction is the direction the town wants to go in for business development, I don't know, attract tourists, do we want to go from being a farm and apple community to a cannabis dispensary, head shop, local tourism to get your weed place to go? This is my concern. The law says that we opted into this. I understand and appreciate that, but I think it's off to a healthy start, and a little bit of restrictive zoning might be a way to move forward cautiously rather than like barreling ahead and then a couple years from now saying, what the hell happened, right? So I'd appreciate it if you would seriously consider that. I don't really understand what the emphasis or the desire to encourage as opposed to allow is. That's my feeling. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Would anybody else like to speak on this matter? Okay, well, there'll be another opportunity because we expect to continue this hearing until, and at this time, I think I'd like to note for the record that we have received written communication, Lori mentioned hers, and others, which will be read into the record, be a part of the record, and we will address some of the comments that we received as we discuss the local law and some of the secret review this evening. At this time, however, I think I'd like to make a motion. First of all, the 29th, folks that were available then, it would have to be a special meeting in order to allow for enough time to do the renotice. Does that work, the 29th, 7:35? Any problems with that,
January.
council person? January, yes, that'll be the 5th Wednesday. As you know, this is one of those months where the 4th Wednesday is only 8 days after the
The plan would be to
14th.
reschedule the meeting on the
We were going
22nd.
to keep the 22nd, and we'll discuss that later, because if we want to apply for one of these grant programs, it's due on the 24th, if we do come up with a project. Okay, all right, so at this time I'd like to make a motion that we set a special meeting for Wednesday, January 29th at 7:30, and we extend the public hearing for local law D to 7:35 on that evening. Is there a second for that combined motion?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Julia. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Very good. Why don't we bounce around a little bit? Let's go back to the supervisor's report, if we will, for the folks at home. Every first meeting of the month, we give you a snapshot of the finances of your municipality and your tax dollars and how they are working. Each month, this is for the period ending December 31st. And we began the month with an opening balance of $8,010,000. Thereabouts, we had receipts of $2.4 million, disbursements of $1.4, an ending balance just under $9 million, $8,988,000. And I will note that we have sold off some of the Cookingham properties, as we mentioned we would. And that's why you see unusually at the end of the year, actually, our closing balance going up. I'll give you a preview of what 2024 highlights will be, is that we are going to end the year stronger than we started the year, despite all of the investments that we made during the course of 2024. Look forward to a presentation sometime in February on what those numbers are looking like. We have prepared for us budget adjustments by our bookkeeper, Ann Conway. Are there any questions about them, folks? Okay, if not, I'd entertain a motion to accept the supervisor's report. Who would like to do that?
So moved.
Thank you, William. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Christine. All in favor?
Aye.
We also have the clerk's report as well as an abstract. Deanna, if you'd be kind enough to give us that report, please.
The Town Clerk's report for the period of December 1st to December 31st, 2024. Total local shares remitted to the supervisor, $7,833.41. Amount paid to New York State Agriculture and Markets for the spay-neuter program, $25. Amount paid to New York State Department of Health for marriage licenses, $90. Amount paid to New York State Racing and Wagering for Games of Chance Bell Jar license, $15. Amount paid to New York State Environmental Conservation for hunting and fishing licenses, $794.59. Total state, county, and local revenues, $8,758. And I hereby certify that vouchers numbered 32813 to 32962, totaling $207,770.10, processed in the month of December 2024, are an accurate reporting of the abstracts approved for payment by the town board.
Thank you, Deanna. Is there a motion to accept the clerk's report?
So moved.
Thank you, Christine.
Second.
Thank you, Jacob. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very good. Announcements, we have just one announcement, but I have anyway. We'll get to it. It's that time of year again. Repair Cafe. Next upcoming, where are we? 2 weekends from now, Saturday, January 25th, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Toss it, no way, bring it to the Repair Cafe. Somebody's been getting into poetry on the CAC. Here are some of the items that you can get fixed, and ostensibly almost all of it for free at the Red Hook Community Center, right around the corner at 59 Fifth Street. New this month, zipper repairs. Well, I could tie up the place for all 3 hours probably with that. Chair repairs. Very good. Okay, the other item we want to bring to your attention, it's that time of year again for the annual Ruth O.J. Scholarship. The Conservation Advisory Council, once again, a $500 award, and it is for, it's available to students who are residents of Red Hook. The applications are available online until March 15th, and here is the link. And as a reminder, all of these documents are available and have been available on the town website. You go to there to get the links. All right, that concludes announcements. Anybody else have any other announcements? Okay, very good. Why don't we move into public comments? Does anybody have any public comments on anything? Linda, would you kindly come to the front?
Yes,
Just state your
Linda
name.
Keeling. I noticed the organizational information does not include a committee for St. Margaret's. You said that you were going to put a committee. I have been volunteering my time to try and get on a committee. We need to have that committee. You're proceeding and you're using tax money as well as grant money, and nobody knows what's going on there. You can't do that.
Thank you, Linda. Appreciate it. As we've said before, we're going to make the building habitable. We're not going to waste 14 years like we did before. People's time, committee's time with the building that was not usable, and we're very close to having that. I think
We didn't waste
by the
14 years.
By the time the springtime rolls around, hopefully we'll be in a position to appoint a committee. We are looking at all the committees this year in a new light to see if maybe we want to populate them differently, or if we want to formulate them differently, or if we want to partner with the
If
village.
you want me to get names together, I can do that for you too.
Thank you, Linda. We
And quite
appreciate
much
that.
easier.
We appreciate that. Very good. Any other public comments? Okay. Why don't we jump right in? We're going to do a quick resolution number 1 relating to annual reorg, and then we'll get into our agenda items. We have a few folks here tonight who will try to jump around the agenda so you don't have to stay any longer than necessary, but our reorg we want to do first off. Our meeting dates, folks, any changes to the default meeting dates, which are the second Tuesday and fourth Wednesday? We're still good with that? Okay, the official newspaper of the town for 2025, still the Poughkeepsie Journal, although we have noted it has been a little challenging to get some of these notices published in a timely manner. But we'll stick with that for now, yeah, okay. Depositories, I note that this seems to be, do we have Key Bank? I'm not sure we have Key Bank anymore. We do have New York Class. Petty cash, we're at 1,000 for receiver. Does that still work for us, Deanna?
For petty cash, it's 500.
500 for the officer, 1,000 for the receiver.
Oh, I have 500.
Okay. Salaries, published salaries,
I don't need 1,000.
yes, ma'am.
It specifies that you are setting a $500 amount. If you want it to be higher,
Yeah.
you need to state that there. The maximum is 1,000 for receiver.
Right, that's what I'm sorry, that's what I meant to
I just
say.
want to be clear, that's what's going on.
I believe that's what I thought I said, but okay. If not clear, that's the maximum is 1,000.
Who's speaking?
But that's not what you're setting.
The
It's
town
Chris Shaw, the
attorney.
town attorney.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Mileage reimbursement rate, the new rate for 2025, IRS rate is 70 cents per mile for town officials and employees who incur official mileage. Undertaking, no changes there. Check signing, no changes there. Annual financial report, the AUD, filed within 60 days of the close. No changes there. Procurement. No changes in the policy. It's last updated a few years ago. You might want to take a look at that sometime in 2025, see if any elements need to be updated. Investment policy, no changes proposed there. Ethics, fund balance. We'll look at fund balance as part of the annual review next month. Any questions? Resolution number 1. Who would like to move to approve resolution number 1 for 2025?
So moved.
Thank you, Kristen.
I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. All right, so let us, shall we? Brandy, you win. You have the longest commute.
It's all right. Whatever order is appropriate for the meeting is fine with me.
Well, I think we're going to jump to draft water district report. We can let you go on your way, and then we'll come quickly to the 284 agreements, if we can let Teresa enjoy her evening, and then we'll go to local law D. How does that work, folks? All right, we've got a couple of folks joining us remotely. We have our attorney to the town and our town planner joining us by Zoom. So let's scroll, shall we? Draft district report. Brandy, I assume we're not going to go through the whole thing?
No.
Otherwise, I can go and I can try to pull up that whole document.
Yeah, probably quicker from there.
Okay.
Good evening. Brandy Nelson with Chai and Pond, engineer for the town. Recently, in discussion with the board, one of the items that we've undertaken at the board's request is to take a look at parcels within the town that are served by village water. And over the last 75 years, surprisingly, quite a few parcels have come to be served by water. And so that's one aspect of what we were looking at. The second is just aligning the water service area with your TND, which has been sort of the board's long-standing objective to try and achieve the desired development densities, which just over time, I think we've come to realize we need central sewer and water. So it's a two-step process that we undertake to form the district. The first is to complete a preliminary engineering report, which is really just taking a snapshot in time of what we have, so that we can then decide where does it make sense to form a district. We've been working with the village and the village's engineer, and shout out to Jen Kavanaugh, who's answered a million questions that we've had and dug up tons of data for us. And we appreciate all of the village's assistance in this matter. Their consulting engineer has also been helpful providing materials to us. So we've done a format of a report that's consistent with what EFC wants to see if you want to build off of this report at some point in the future for a funding application. At this point in time, there's no capital improvement project that we are currently entertaining. We're really just trying to evaluate where are parcels in the town already served by village water, and where may it make sense to extend that water service to align it with the TND. So within the report that I sent to you all, I think it was about 126 pages. About 100 of those pages are the data summary, so that we could evaluate, which parcels are being served and how much water are they consuming, so that we could come to some idea of water consumption and what the demand is in the current service areas. What I would like to do, we're sort of at a little bit of a decision point, and so what I'd like to do is take a look at figure 4 in the report, which should be, I guess we can't jump to a page here, can we? So figure 4 in the report is a map of the town. One more. There we go, that one. And I don't know if you can, are you able to shrink it just a little bit?
You'd think. You'd think I'd be able to do
There,
that.
oh, there,
How's that?
that's good. That's good. Well, maybe we'll look at the top half and the bottom half in two. So we use 199 as the midpoint of the drawing. Right now, we're looking at the northern, the properties along 199 and north of 199 along Route 9 that are currently served village water. They are in the green coloring with a yellow outline. The yellow outline is just means it's a parcel that we studied as part of this evaluation. The green indicates, based on village records, that it is served water from the village. And then for those of you with really good eyes, there are two different colors of blue lines that represent the distribution pipes that currently serve those areas. And the village has color coded those based on the size of the pipe, just so they know where 6-inch pipe is versus 8-inch pipe versus 12-inch pipe. So what this shows us of note in the report is that north of the village, the parcel that is served looks like a humongous parcel, but that's primarily land that's in conservation now as part of the Cookingham property. There is a single house on that parcel that I believe is going to be used for agricultural purposes moving forward. So there'll continue to be water service there, but it's not, if that wasn't in conservation, it'd be a parcel where we say, oh, there could potentially be growth there, and so we want to make sure the water service is well defined. In this case, I think it just continues to be one service connection to the house, and so I don't know that we want to form a district with these two properties that are served just individually with a direct service connection. So for our purposes, the recommendation is just allow those two parcels to continue to be served as they are under a separate user agreement. Then to the west of the district, these are parcels that are generally split by the village-town line that are served. They could be incorporated into a district, but I suspect, and we haven't been able to suss out the particulars with the village, but I suspect those are also just individual service connections. The question for the town, or perhaps the planning board, would be, is there potential for growth on the west side that we want to consider and prepare for at some point in time, west side of the village that we want to consider. To the east, this is, I think, a little more clear-cut case. Back in the 1950s, when the Willow Park subdivision was approved, water was extended to that subdivision. And there are very limited records on that, but in the approval documents for Willow Park subdivision, it includes water, and there are approvals from the health department at the time approving the extension of water mains. Interestingly, according to the village records, not every property along the stretch of distribution system along 199 is in fact served, and I'm not really sure what the reasoning is for that. But if we were to form a district, it would be more consistent if we created like a single boundary, not one that has like a little archipelago of lots that are strung together. So we included all the adjacent parcels to Willow Park subdivision or other parcels in 199 that were served, just saying they potentially could be served, and it seems to make sense to include them if a district were formed. Then the area south of the village is an area you guys are all familiar with from the sewer district work. There's three things really to note here. So we have the study area extending a little bit further south to include all of the TND OI, as well as the TND RR that is along Metzger Road, and the TND CC that is adjacent to Route 9. So it's a fairly large area that we're looking at. As you know, currently majority of that is undeveloped. The two things I want to point out here beyond the size of the study area is that on the left side of the screen is the Tradition neighborhood. That is obviously, it's colored green. Actually, that's not Tradition. Tradition was, oh, what are we circling? Higher up, a little bit more. Right? Nope.
Next one.
Next one up. Right there. Yes. So that's Tradition. That is its own district. That is a Dutchess County Water and Wastewater Authority district. It is served village water, but it would not be subject to any new district that the town might consider creating. The other area I wanted to point out is the Glen Pond Drive loop. Again, reviewing the subdivision documents from about 2000, the Glen Pond subdivision is served from a water main that comes directly from the village's well field and just exclusively serves that neighborhood. I had thought, and a colleague of mine had thought, that it interconnected with the Route 9 water main and formed what's called a loop, but it in fact does not. The water main just extends for a short segment along Metzger Road just to serve the houses in that neighborhood. So if we're thinking about immediate district consisting of parcels that are served, it would be the parcels that are shaded in green and also inside the yellow boundary that we would recommend as initial district formation. And the input I'd like to get from the board is, do we also at this time want to consider extending that district to include the TND or TND-R and the TND-OI to the south as well. Generally speaking, the parcels that are not served by village water are on wells. So I know the Hannaford's on a well, Savona's is on a well, Stewart's, everybody there has got their own well. The only outlier that I don't know if it's reflected on the map here is that Mighty Donuts has a water service through the Ross property that comes off of Old Farm Road. They have a private easement for that service back to their facility.
And Hardscrabble got water, right?
Yes.
Paid for.
Yes. So when Tradition had the water main extended along Old Farm Road to serve their development, a couple of the property owners for the short portion of Old Farm Road from Tradition out to Route 9 got together and asked the village to extend the water main the full length of Old Farm Road and under and connecting to the Hardscrabble property on the east side of Route 9. So that's good. That actually creates a loop that helps improve water quality in the distribution system and just generally what engineers that do water distribution system would prefer to see, so that you don't have what are called dead ends in the system where your water quality can deteriorate.
Next.
Yes, so in terms of recommendations, so looking at the Willow Park subdivision on the right side of the screen, it's a grouping of green and red parcels. The red are not currently served, the green are currently served. That makes kind of a logical district location. The age of the infrastructure appears to be relatively uniform. The village says that they don't have any particular maintenance concerns, so we don't see an immediate need for any kind of capital project. But I think that that area sort of logically forms a district with very uniform characteristics. And then the second place we potentially recommend a district would be the area south of the village that's currently served up to and including the TND-R and OI portions of the town that are not currently developed.
So it makes it a little bit of a challenge because we have some properties that are being serviced under a current agreement or a recent agreement or a legacy agreement.
The status of the legal agreements are somewhat ambiguous, particularly for the older parcels. And so from the village's perspective, the challenge for them is sort of twofold. Because they have a number of parcels where there are not formal agreements, where they cannot any longer find what the formal agreements were, they don't have a mechanism for collecting on any user fees. So if a user doesn't pay their bill, they don't have any leverage. There's no way for them to collect on that. So forming a district creates a governing entity. And the town already has a water district, Water District Number 1, which serves a region of the town northwest of the village. So the town has some familiarity and has already like an infrastructure around water service. The other challenge that it creates for the village is that the village can't borrow money that benefits only town users. So as infrastructure ages and water mains tend to last somewhere around 75 years, but as they go beyond that, their performance can decline. You can have a lot of water main breaks. And so there may be, at some point in the future, a need to do some borrowing. And the formation of a district would create an entity that could borrow funds and then recoup costs with a user charge that is above and beyond the rate that is being paid right now by water users.
Okay. Next slide. Or you
I
don't-
think
you don't
that's,
need
like,
it.
this is really, like, the question on the table is, do we think 2 districts? Do you guys know anything about development or growth in these areas that we haven't been able to identify just in conversations with some of you and
Well,
the village?
as you know, we've done the hard work and the harder work. The hard work of identifying where we want to discourage development, where we want to allow development, and the hardest part, which is where we want to encourage development, and that of course is south of the village in RT and D zones. So clearly we need to establish a water district there if we're going to realize our potential now that we're well on our way to establishing the sewer district. I guess the question there is whether or not to include in your recommendation. I gather from what you're saying tonight is that you would include Glen Pond and other properties along with that district, even though they have existing infrastructure.
I think it makes sense, again, given the age of the infrastructure, but also to provide the opportunities to create a more reliable water system in that portion of the service territory.
Okay.
And Brandy, could you speak for a minute? This is obviously unlike the creation of the sewer district because that had immediate term capital expenses.
Mhm.
So if someone who currently has some kind of agreement with the village for water service becomes part of a district,
Mhm.
how does that change things for them?
So that's a good question. That's some work that we need to still do with the village, is to figure out how many of these exist, and that's something that we would do in conjunction with the attorney. And I think it will be on an individual case-by-case basis depending on what the terms and conditions are of that agreement. I do think the vast majority are more probably handshake type agreements, and thus far we haven't really seen any formal agreements, except, will extend to the water district, or the water service will extend to the, I believe it was called the, I'm blanking on the name of the subdivision where Glen Pond is, but the developer and his wife put that together, and so there's an agreement for that one. So it'll just be on a case-by-case basis, and whether or not those, that creates an impediment, we would end up probably with a carve-out in the district if there was some deal breaker there.
So it seems, maybe it's customary, but it seems counterintuitive to me, since we have a water district which is our water for our residents,
Yeah.
that we would be creating a district for our residents with another municipality's water.
Yeah.
Is that a customary arrangement? I mean, it seems odd.
I think my own experience is that communities vary widely in how these sorts of service anomalies get created. There are other communities in Dutchess County that have run into this same issue, and so I think it's probably becoming to awareness of municipalities because of the aging infrastructure question.
Because the only thing that sticks out to me is the lack of control that a municipality loses when they rely on another municipality, I mean, I understand it would be like an IMA, some
Yeah.
kind of interagency agreement that would talk about who's responsible for what. But
Right.
at the end of the day, if it's our residents and say they run out of water in the village,
Mhm.
there's just some questions that I have about how that's worked out.
Right, right. So yeah, that's definitely part of, before we would get to district formation, there's sort of a
Capacity.
second report, a
Capacity.
map plan and report that has to be put together. And looking at the capacity of the supply is a critical part of that, because the village has an obligation to provide water,
Have to, right.
right? Whereas they don't to the town. So again, that has to be worked into your agreement. And if we include the red parcels, what we need to do as a next step is do a little bit of predictive work like we did with the sewer, how much, and we would use the sewer data to the extent it's aligned, but how much water would they need, and could the village still provide that without creating any sort of problem for service of all of their users. So, thus far, verbally the village has told us they have tons of capacity, they have tons of storage, they've done big upgrade projects recently, and so they feel, generally confident that they can continue to serve in a reliable manner.
And would we then be like we'll say it's one of our it's a customer in our district,
Yeah.
in our property.
Yeah.
Say there's a main breaks and it has to be repaired.
Yeah.
That's on the village to take care of, right? Because they're.
So that would be a detail worked out in the IMA. What happens now is, yes, the village just repairs a break wherever it occurs.
Wherever. Okay, so that's how it's been going on for 50 years.
It would not be too dissimilar to the creation of the sewer
Sewer
district.
district,
Right.
And obviously, if we're gonna realize the potential of the property, we need to supply it with both the water and sewer. If we're gonna have that hotel, conference center,
That's what was
and
lying
so on
me.
and so forth, down there south of Hannaford, then obviously we need to make sure the
Mhm.
infrastructure is there and the mechanisms, legal mechanisms are in place.
Well, or that the wheels are in motion, and then,
Right.
if I think ideally, similar to what happened for Traditions, they wanted village water, and, Christine was a very robust participant in that discussion, and on for some time, but they then took upon themselves as one of their project costs to bear the cost of extending the infrastructure. So there can be some benefits when you extend a district to react to a development proposal. There can be some synergies that get created there. So I think, from my standpoint, on one hand, I would say just go with what's being served now. That's sort of very understood and tried and true. And then when you get a development proposal, you want to be in position to either create an additional district or expand the district in response to. But again, we're not proposing any capital improvement, so there's really no cost at this juncture that is being accounted for. It'd be a different story if the town were going to extend the water main, past Hannaford down to Hannaford Drive, and there was a capital component that we were considering at this point in time. But right now, we're just doing essentially a paper district.
Well, I think we need to have a district that goes all the way down there.
I think there was a nuance in what you just said that was maybe slightly different from what's written in the report, which is that there's an option which would include basically two districts, one in the east, I guess, and one in the south, but currently formed with boundaries just encompassing the properties that are currently served,
Mhm.
with the sort of back pocket
Mhm.
option of extending that
Right.
as development
Right,
follows.
right.
Yeah, I'm lost on why it would benefit us to take that path and not just do the entire area, what is serviced and what we want to be serviced. Am I missing something, Brandon?
I think I want to just have a conversation with the town's attorney about whether or not formation of a district compels the requirement to provide a certain benefit. Because the red parcels, except where they are between
Right.
green parcels cannot easily be served, right? A capital project would need to be undertaken.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
think we want to think that piece of it through.
Good point. Okay, so it sounds like we need to come back to you on, certainly on this district. I mean, colleagues, do you feel that the east side is a little easier decision? It's mostly a existing service area. There are some gaps there, however, but pretty much we're talking about Willow Park here.
We're basically administratively cleaning up
Yeah.
the situation.
Yeah, I mean, and this is, I should add that this is also at the request of the village who
That's
wants us to form these districts.
And so the process of forming the district is, does that require the buy-in, so to speak, of the red parcel?
We will need to have a public hearing at some point in time, and we'll notify all the potential district participants that that's a plan to form a district, and here's the rationale why, and here's what it means, and.
Right, but does there have to be a certain percentage of them that
Correct.
agree, like with the sewer process?
Yep, that's correct.
And so if you're on one of those red parcels, then you already have some kind of private water supply, it's working well. How do things change for you in that scenario?
Yeah, I don't know, and some of the parcels appear to be vacant land.
Okay.
There's, we had, in the draft, you see, we had a little printer glitch, but a couple of those parcels have some pretty wet environment, and so they may not be developable, I'm not sure.
Mhm. Yeah, it's opposite from the car washes.
Yeah, but
Okay,
I mean, that seems
yeah.
fairly straightforward
Yeah.
there.
That one
Yeah.
seems straightforward. I just, it seems to me if we're going to all this trouble to create this districts and in part at the request of the village, then I think it's only reasonable that we do actually form the district all the way down and put ourselves, whoops, lost it there. Put ourselves in the position where we would need to, or have the village need to service that area. I mean, I don't think we're in this just to help out the village. We're in this to make sure we have the infrastructure in place.
To grow, yeah.
To realize the vision of the centers and green space
Mhm,
plan.
mhm.
So,
I would go two.
a couple more.
Yeah, right.
So I'm inclined to, and I know it complicates things for you, because then it does become there's a capital.
Not really, I mean, it's
Aspect
just
of
a
it.
matter of adding that, what improvements are proposed, what are the costs of that, and that's really kind of, we got stuck and said, oh, what does the town want to do here?
Mhm.
So we wanted to come and just update you and then get some feedback on what your thoughts are in terms of, should there be a capital component?
Mhm. Yeah, and I imagine, these large parcels here, the majority of them seem to be interested in having those parcels developed out as is consistent with our TND zoning.
Well, I can go back and we can do a calculation on extending water service further south on Route 9, say, to Hannaford Drive, and maybe just stubbing it up the drive so that it could be picked up at some point in time. That would be a relatively small capital project. And then work those costs into the discussion around the formation of, if we were going numerically, Water District 1 is your one that is northwest of the village, so maybe Willow Park is 2, and this is proposed District 3, something to that effect. Yeah, so I think the water main would need to be extended, say, 1,500 feet or so down Route 9.
Okay.
I always wonder, does that then spur someone else to want water? So, sort of like where do we stop the discussion? So, does the neighborhood on Jefferson, I've heard they had some water challenges. Are they gonna approach the town and want to have a discussion about water service? And then we have to sort of iterate with the village and make sure that they've got capacity.
I thought Jefferson was serviced by
County.
DCWWA.
Yeah.
It's county.
Yeah.
Jefferson?
That's that whole little
Is it?
development
It is the
behind
county
the
now.
Conways. That's
Yeah, but that's not connected to Traditions.
No.
It's a separate-
No,
is
they
it
have their
separate?
own-
And the county does that one too?
Yeah, the
Okay.
county does that one.
They picked up that
I
one.
didn't realize they picked that one up.
Okay, yeah, I didn't realize that either. That's good to know.
Okay.
Well, what do you all think? It sounds like 2 separate districts, one
One
for
east of the
existing
village,
east, and then
And then one south.
south.
But then we have to decide, we need a little more information.
A little more information you could help us?
Yeah.
Maybe between
Because,
now and
it's,
next.
you know, as you mentioned before, some of these parcels that are shown in red, you know, there'd be some difficulty in servicing them,
Yes.
Well, the parcel,
depending on the order of development, but like,
Yeah.
yeah, you would say, oh, look, the Glen Cove Road, you possibly could just come across the road with that, but you can't necessarily do that because of the way that it was developed. So,
The natural ones, in my opinion, are the ones that are already abutting either Old Farm Road, so the Hoffman Barn property, the Rhinebeck Savings Bank, and potentially the Lyceum. You know, they're basically on a main already. So I think they meet the adjacency criteria that we used for Willow Park. The ones that would require a capital project would be anything south of Holy Cow. So if you're extending down, you know, the Stewarts, the Savonas, the Hannaford, St. Margaret's, and then the undeveloped land to the south and west of Hannaford Drive. Or excuse me, to the
East.
south and east of Hannaford Drive.
So Brandy, could you get together with Chris between now and our next meeting?
Yep.
Help us understand from a legal perspective? Because I'm still struggling to understand if we formed a sewer district, you know, obviously it's of little value to some of these developers if we can't ensure that they get water
Right.
supply.
Right, okay.
So, maybe follow up, but it does sound like 2 separate districts. And then some follow-up on the southern one.
Okay, thank you.
While we have you,
Yes.
and while I have this image up, did you want to talk just very briefly about CDBG? We did?
Sure.
Okay.
So the county has made an announcement that CDBG funds are available for the next fiscal year. And I believe it's by the end of this week, they would like letters of intent.
So an LOI by February 3rd,
Oh,
with
February
an
3rd,
application by March 3rd.
Okay, all right, so we've got a little bit of time. In 2023, we made an application to the county for a potential, what's called public facilities project that would extend the sidewalk on the east side of Route 9 from where the flashing beacon crosswalk is in front of the Holy Cow, on the east side of Route 9, so in front of Holy Cow, down to St. Margaret's property. And then there is a footpath that has been in use since the Hannaford was created that goes along the property line behind Holy Cow to Hannaford Drive, and then there's a sidewalk on Hannaford Drive, and so people walk that pretty regularly. But the section that runs behind Hannaford and along the north boundary of St. Margaret's, it's really poorly defined, and so the proposal at the time was to do a extension on the concrete sidewalk. Thinking that that provides an important pedestrian linkage for people that maybe don't have access to a vehicle. There's no sidewalk along Route 9, so this allows people to sort of get off the highway and get to the supermarket by foot if they choose so. That application was not selected for award, so that may be one we want to think about putting forward again. So I wanted to just mention that one. And then the other possibility is that CDBG funds can also be used for things like water and wastewater. And we would need to talk to the county about it, but they may entertain paying for some of the design costs associated with the sewer collection system, or the sewer, well, I guess we don't have the sewer plant, so sewer collection system design itself. So those are 2 that, just were off the top of my head might be good candidates for consideration, and we can submit the LOIs. It's like a two-page form that you just submit to the county, and then they give you feedback on it, and then once they give you an up or down, you can move forward with a formal application, so.
Can you submit more than one LOI, or do you have to choose only one to put forward?
I think they said you can submit multiple LOIs,
Okay,
yeah.
and then they give feedback and you choose the one before.
Right, and I guess you can submit multiple applications, but you're competing against yourself, so I haven't had any success with multiple applications there. So I think you want one good application.
To just back up again for a minute, so the previous application that we put in
Mm-hmm.
for the sidewalk,
Mm-hmm.
did or did not include the footpath up the hill behind the Holy Cow buildings that we were
Did.
talking about?
Yeah.
That was also in.
It was all sidewalk. It was 810 linear feet of sidewalk, beginning where the sidewalk ends in front of the Holy Cow, running south parallel to Route 9, and then turning east and running on St. Margaret's and Hannaford property to connect back to Hannaford Drive. So, and it was concrete sidewalk, so it's durable. I think over time there had been a stone dust path, but it's just gotten eroded, and some lighting just for security purposes. So it wasn't just like a paved little path.
Yeah.
It was like a real sidewalk.
Accessible.
Yeah.
Accessible.
Yep.
And we're further along on the other projects, so hopefully that'll bolster our chances. And I know the county's very happy with the way the work is unfolding at St. Margaret's, so, you know, we'll see. It doesn't necessarily mean we'll get it this time, but.
Yeah.
And so they're talking about $1 million to $1.5 million for all of the eligible areas in the county.
Yeah, and I would say, commonly you've seen many applications awarded. They're awarding somewhere between maybe $50,000 and $200,000 depending on your project. And depending on the category of project, they have an award limit. I haven't looked at this year's number, but when we applied in 2023 for the sidewalk, we asked for $200,000, which was roughly half the cost of the project.
Do you have a sense of whether a single applicant or a joint application would be more successful? Like if we were to look at doing a wastewater thing with the village, is that something that might be more likely to be awarded than doing something on our own?
I think the county's pretty good at evaluating each project on its merits, and I think what they're looking for is things that can move forward, in a timely fashion, because they have, the CDBG funds are federal dollars, and they have to report back to HUD how successful they've been in getting those dollars distributed and getting real projects constructed. So I think that's what we want to gauge is like, what's the reality
What's
of the
time
outcome?
frame? Exactly.
Yeah.
Because the sidewalk you can just sort of move forward with.
You can.
It's a little bit, there's fewer things to work out than the water.
Yeah.
Less chances, because there was a backlog there for a while, and
Yeah.
that's part of it. And they've actually changed their cycle.
Yes.
They were later in the year, they've now pushed forward to springtime. And that extra few months hopefully will help to clear.
Also,
the
it has to be, if it was going to be a joint project, both projects would have to take place within the allowable areas
Yeah,
of the thing. So it might make it harder to find
that's a good question. I didn't look at the map.
joint projects for the two separate areas.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we just wanted to start the conversation, there may be other valid projects. Just for frame of reference, the town only has one section of the town that meets the income eligibility requirements, and that's the southeast quadrant of the town, so, basically east of Route 9 and I believe south of 199.
Yeah.
And it's not even the whole thing, it's a portion of it.
Yeah.
So that's where public facilities projects are allowed. Elsewhere in the town, we have to focus on removal of architectural barriers, accessibility type projects.
And St. Margaret's is included in that area.
St. Margaret's has been undergoing all sorts of accessibility improvements, that's correct.
Brandy,
Anything else?
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Randy.
Appreciate it. Safe commute back. Okay, we have Teresa here. Can we quickly jump to our 284, that's agenda item number 5, please? And I have to do a whole jump on that. Brandy's given us a quote for the task force for doing the engineering of the specs for picking them, so it would be about 5,000 for that. So we'll insert that into that resolution when we get that. We have resolution number 2, I believe. We are 2. You'd think I would be able to keep track of 1 and 2. To approve 2025 highway expenditures. Each year, the highway department, under the management of the highway superintendent, proposes where the capital improvements shall be made, both repairs and repaving. And so we're reviewing again tonight the proposal, which is $60,000 to be set aside for the materials for primary work and general repairs, and $180,000 for permanent improvements to the following town highways. And so folks, if you see your road mentioned here, just know that at some point later in 2025, should the board authorize this, you might see your road improved, repaved, or repaired. So what's proposed is Woods Road north of the village of Tivoli up into the county border. We spoke about the Jefferson neighborhood, Adams Road starting at Rokeby and ending at the dead end, and then on Jefferson Road starting at Adams Road and ending at Adams Road. If that's confusing to you, it's because it's a loop there in Jefferson. 110,000 associated with Grandmore and Seymour Drive, that's north of Mill Road. Any questions while we have Teresa here with us? Okay.
Pretty straightforward.
Okay, thank you very much. This time I'd like to move resolution number 2, and here specific, if you care to know. It's an asphalt overlay and oil and stone chip seal as it relates to Grandmore Seymour. I'll move resolution number 2. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much. Thank you, Teresa.
Do you have
Should
your 2
you-
copies to sign tonight?
No, I don't know that I have to. Well, we can quickly do
Yes.
that. We can quickly-
I'm ready.
quickly-
Yeah.
If you wouldn't mind, thank you so much.
We wouldn't
Do we
mind.
also want to have the discussion about the sale of the equipment?
Did you want to talk about that?
I'm asking, I don't know if that makes sense for right now while Teresa's here. or-
Teresa, did you want to cover that? I thought it was fairly straightforward, but did you want to cover the, we've been sharing a chipper. We now have purchased our own, and we've gotten an estimate. You've done some depreciation on the existing shared equipment that we had.
Yeah, it was based on the original price and the depreciation rate over the years that we've had it. And the town of Mylan has reached out to us and said that they are willing to purchase it. As soon as we give them the go-ahead, they will get the approval from their board, and then we'll exchange money for equipment, and we won't have to worry about it anymore, because we have thanks to the town board, a beautiful, brand-new, state-of-the-art, very safe chipper that we just had a lesson on. So everybody's well aware of what it does, and we appreciate the board authorizing that, and we're expecting our forklift next week. So after we get the forklift, we'll be asking you to declare that old piece of equipment surplus and a couple other things that are just sitting around the shop. So we'll bring that up when we get that. But if you approve tonight the transfer of the chipper, then we can go ahead with that.
Good. Well, I'm glad to hear that the highway crew is feeling chipper about that. I'd like to move that we go ahead and authorize our remaining interest in the shared equipment.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Teresa.
Thank
For
you.
this calculation.
Okay.
And we've got two forms for you here tonight. Okay, moving right along, and thanks for your patience, Ted Fink, Chris Shaw. We're gonna jump back And we're gonna go to local law D. We're just gonna cover some of the seeker stuff tonight, and any updates to that, and maybe discuss some proposed tweaking, we'll call this local law D. Lay it on the desk. Some of the, in response to some of the comments, that we have you with us here, Chris. One of the things we asked was to, although we thought it was self-explanatory what a boat ramp was, we do have some definition that Ted's been kind enough to, I think, you pulled that, Ted, from some document somewhere, is that right?
Yes, I generally rely on the American Planning Association Planning Advisory Service, which has a publication that basically it consists of a survey of zoning definitions around the nation. It's about close to 500 pages long, and it provides a pretty exhaustive listing of how communities throughout the nation define terms that are not in a different way than they are generally used in your general Webster's dictionary and things like that. And so they get right to the heart of land use issues. And generally the definitions are pretty straightforward. The advice is not to include any regulatory aspects to the definitions, but to rely instead on a good, concise way of describing what a municipality intends when they use a particular term within a zoning law.
Okay. And that's up for the folks at home to see. A facility to launch and retrieve recreational boats on a trailer towed by a vehicle. Boat club, there's only a slight change to that. Storing and use of pleasure, there was a typo, there was no of in there. And then boat is plural. The other proposed change for D3, discussing the definition of wetlands and the support on the federal level for the federal wetlands, which is likely not to be there and would be very difficult for us to administer, while it's certainly worthy to take a look at including 25 feet for a buffer of delineated Army Corps wetland. What's proposed in this draft is to remove that and to also further define DEC regulations, or New York State DEC regulations. Not that was obviously apparent, but just to be sure that that's clear to folks. I believe any other minor changes. Okay, so mooring of vessels, we have some clarifying language there. We were asked to, help further define that. Ted, did you want to cover that? Not permitted within 1,500 feet of the shoreline and subject to any applicable state and federal permits. Did you maybe want to talk a little bit about your knowledge of the Hudson River alongside our town's portion of the river and its ability for navigation as well?
Well, sure. I can talk about it from the standpoint of my own personal interaction with that area. I've visited that area in canoes, kayaks, and motorboats. And the Hudson is a challenging river. It consists of tidal flows, downstream flows, and winds. And so mooring is a challenge, as are any sort of marinas that are located in the Hudson, most of which are located in protected areas. What comes to mind for a marina that is not within a protected cove or area is the marina that's in Poughkeepsie is called Shadows Marina, and it's an in-stream marina. And I had personal experience when I taught a class at Marist College that was a floating classroom, and had to use Marist boat to navigate in and out of that particular marina every day, dealing with the currents and the tides and winds. And I can tell you, the Marist boat was a 28-foot boat, twin engine. And even with the twin engines, it was very tricky on some days when you had all three forces working against you. And no matter, I've been motoring since I was 10 years old. I had my first boat at that time, so I've had a lot of experience with motorboats and other naval vessels over the years, and it was quite a challenge. Those forces are at work in the Red Hook shoreline, and I would think that members of the boat club are probably down in Berrytown are probably very familiar with that, other boat clubs along the river and marinas that are located along the Hudson. It does take a certain degree of skill, and I think the larger ships that ply the Hudson, they actually employ specialized pilots that are familiar with the river and familiar with the conditions in the river. So the notion of docking boats and mooring boats and so forth in the river does take a certain degree of skill.
Okay.
Okay.
Good, and we had some comments about, further utilizing the riverfront, waterfront conservation area, and maximizing waterfront activities, and how not allowing for a marina, which I think you did some good analysis, and we'll get to that in a moment in your seeker review on how many parcels would even be available for that according to our current zoning. But I did want to just quote, because there was some reference to the comp plan and its consistency with the comp plan, and I think it's page 16 and 17 really cover this. The language is preferred use within the waterfront conservation area is restricted to passive and water-dependent recreation and to land-extensive open space, uses which provide little disturbance to the natural environment. So a big commercial marina were to even be possible in and along our waterfront wouldn't necessarily be consistent with that at all. Consideration should be given to the development of Hudson Riverfront parks at Tivoli and Barrytown to provide the townspeople windows on the Hudson, and to the creation of a continuous trail network along the town's substantially undeveloped Hudson Riverfront to extend the concept of these windows to that of a corridor. And I think that pretty much covers it. Really, the objectives under the comprehensive plan is sort of a light touch along the river, access to the river, ensuring that the public has an opportunity to enjoy the river by establishing Hudson Riverfront parks at both Tivoli and Barrytown. Okay, moving right along, I think that's pretty much all the changes we've highlighted in the use tables, as local law D has undergone these clarifications or tweaks, and the elimination of marinas, which are not consistent with the comp plan, and that passive recreation. Why don't we, Ted, can we take a gander here at part 2 on the seeker review, or did you want to start with the LWRP?
We can go into either one, whichever you prefer. The Part 2 environmental assessment form was originally prepared back in December for the original iteration of the proposed zoning law, the D1. And in view of the changes that have been made in the successive iterations of D2 and now D3, I believe that, in my opinion anyway, the Part 2 environmental assessment form should remain unchanged, that there is only one of the 18 different categories in the Part 2 environmental assessment form that was answered yes. And the reason for that, it's for the impact on historic and archaeological resources. The way that the Part 2 environmental assessment form is constructed, it's done in relation to what the impact on land is going to be, the impact on water, impact on traffic, and so forth. And the entire environmental assessment process is certainly designed to elicit responses primarily for land disturbance activities, projects that require construction and that have clear impacts on the physical environment, as well as the social environment and things like traffic. And so the questions are always asked in a way, and I'll give you an example, because there's two questions that relate to the impact on community character and the consistency with that, and the consistency with comprehensive plans or community plans. And the way the questions are phrased, it's designed to elicit either a yes or a no answer. And so, for instance, with consistency with community plans, the question is the proposed action is not consistent with adopted land use plans, and that's a yes or a no. So the first thing you have to do in preparing these Part 2 environmental assessment forms is to examine the comprehensive plan, and if the proposed action is consistent with the comprehensive plan, then the answer to that question would be no. And therefore, on the seeker directions, there's no further narrative discussion that needs to occur. So the only question where the answer is almost always going to be yes, even on a generic action like adoption of a zoning amendment, is the impact on historic and archaeological resources, because the way this particular question is phrased, the proposed action may occur in or adjacent to a historic or archaeological resource. And of course, we know Red Hook has got significant numbers of historic and archaeological resources. So the answer to that question, of course, would be yes. The proposed action will occur in an area where there are historic and archaeological resources. And so therefore, the narrative discussion in the Part 3 EAF, which further defines exactly what those impacts would be, is an opportunity to be able to talk about not only the impact on historic and archaeological resources, but also what are the objectives of the proposed zoning changes. And so largely the discussion in the Part 3 EAF is directed at explaining the rationale for making the zoning decisions, not necessarily that there are environmental impacts in the way that the environmental assessment form is constituted. So basically, with that said, the Part 3 EAF then goes in to describe what is the action, what are all of the various components that make up the proposed zoning changes, and then it goes into the rationale and to how these changes are consistent with the town comprehensive plan. And in addition, in this case, because one of the uses in particular of that is proposed for elimination from the current zoning law, schedule of use regulations, is marinas. And so there's a discussion of the local waterfront revitalization plan for the town of Red Hook within the Part 3 EAF. And then that carries over into the actual coastal assessment form. that the town is also preparing, because we have a 1995 local waterfront revitalization program that's approved by the state and federal governments.
Very good.
Did you want me to get into the LWRP
Yeah,
discussion?
let's do that, and I think you had a slight proposed change on that as well, based upon some of the tweaks. So yeah,
Yes.
if you would, so we can review it while we have you tonight. Ted, if you have any questions on it, that'd be helpful.
Sure.
Okay.
So the primary one, because all of the zoning changes are they're going to affect the town in general, but the one in particular that affects the waterfront area is the proposal to eliminate the marinas from consideration in Red Hook. And so the coastal assessment form has 44 different policies to go through, and that was filled out with all of the policies being either not applicable based upon the proposal that the town board has before it, or that the action would be consistent with the coastal policies. And so where there is a further explanation needed, especially in this one, is in policy 2, which is to facilitate the siting of water-dependent uses and facilities on or adjacent to coastal waters. So in the Red Hook LWRP, as in with most LWRPs, and with communities that don't have them and then rely upon the New York State Coastal Management Program, there is an explanation of the policy. And sometimes these explanations get very quite verbose. And in Red Hook, there's about a 3 to 4 page explanation of policy. For that particular one, the policy itself is very simple. Facilitate the siting of water-dependent uses and facilities, which makes absolute sense. So facilities like marinas can't locate anywhere else. So if you look deeper at the explanation of the policy, the way that that works is that when you look at how that explanation is constructed, there's an explanation that states pretty clearly that marinas are water dependent because the use itself needs to store and service boats. So it's considered to be potentially compatible with the existing conditions, but the way that the explanation of policy states, it also has to be potentially compatible with local planning objectives. So for a marina to be considered, even though it is a water-dependent use, it has to satisfy both of those criteria, both potentially compatible with the existing conditions and potentially compatible with local planning objectives. So if you begin to look further at what the local planning objectives are, number one, you're going to go right to the quotations that Robert just had for the local planning objectives. What it says in the comprehensive plan about establishing passive recreational uses along the shoreline. So that's one aspect of it. The other is in terms of local planning objectives. What does the zoning say about marinas? Well, certainly zoning does say that marinas are a use within 2 of the waterfront districts. The Hamlet district that covers the area around Berrytown, and the limited development, the LD zoning district. And so within those 2 areas, if you begin to look at what is the actual, from a practical standpoint, if a marina did want to locate in either the H or the LD district, the Hamlet Limited Development District, what would they have to satisfy under the zoning laws express terms? So One would be to first look at the zoning laws district schedule of uses. And so we know already that it's a permitted use within actually 4 districts. I'm not quite sure why the Hamlet Business Zone District is listed there, because there are no.
There's no water there.
Hamlet, no, there's, exactly, there's no water there in the Hamlet Business District. And then the other one is the waterfront conservation. And so the area in Berrytown, it's a very limited area, as most people are probably familiar with it. You get there by crossing a bridge on Berrytown Road over the railroad tracks, and it's the only bridge that's publicly accessible in the town of Red Hook to get you to the waterfront, unless you're in Tivoli Bays. And so, anyway, in that area of Berrytown, there are 8 different parcels of land that are accessible. 6 of them are residential. 2 of them are owned by the Red Hook Boat Club. And so the minimum lot size for establishing a new marina within the H district is 5 acres. So of the lots that are there in the H district, there's 5 parcels, all of which are much less than 5 acres. One is a half an acre, another one is 1 acre. Actually, there's 2 parcels that are a half an acre. One that's 1 acre, one that's 1.5 acres, one that's 2.3 acres. The Red Hook Boat Club, they actually have 2 parcels of land that are 1.34 and 1.03 acres. So they have 2.37 acres of land. So they would not even be able to establish a marina within the Hamlet district. And the only other parcel where that's accessible through that Berrytown Road Bridge is a parcel. It's a 11.6 acre parcel. It's the Edgewater Estate. It was purchased a number of years ago by Classical American Homes Preservation Trust, which is now the, I believe it's called the Richard Hampton Shenwick Foundation. And their mission is to preserve, protect, and make available to the public unparalleled examples of historic architecture, landscape design, and decorative and fine arts from the early 19th century. They're considered a nonprofit charitable trust according to the Dutchess County Parcel Access. The property is on the National Register of Historic Places within the National Historic Landmark District. And they consider their buildings that this not-for-profit Preservation Trust owns to be museums. So that's the only place within Berrytown that's accessible from the Berrytown Road Bridge that would be able to establish a marina, unless there were not, further modifications made to the zoning that would encourage marinas, such as allowing it on some of those residential lots in Berrytown. But based upon the comprehensive plan, based upon the local waterfront program document, I think the conclusion is that marinas, while they were listed in the zoning at some point in time, I don't know the history of that, they certainly do not appear to be favored either in the comprehensive plan or the local waterfront revitalization plan, because they don't appear to meet the local planning objectives.
Okay, well, I think that's a good analysis, Ted, and obviously that Edgewater Estate, those who are familiar with the property know that you couldn't even put a marina there if you wanted to. It's flush with the river just about. I'm not even sure there's a bulkhead there, or much of one anyway.
There's not much of one, I've seen it.
Yeah. Good.
I mean, it's also very shallow there, and that was one of the things that characterizes areas along the waterfront in Red Hook in the Berrytown area is that it does get fairly shallow there, which for a marina, for any kind of a use like the Red Hook Boat Club, you you would have to look at the potential for dredging to establish a channel there.
Yeah, and we've seen quite a bit of silting in the bays there, you know, as we discuss, you know, the property, the former UTS property, and the town's potential acquisition of a portion of that. You know, I don't know if you have, but I've noted just how much silting in has occurred even in the last decade or so.
Yep. Yep. A lot of upstream development and not adequate erosion controls.
Right.
Yep, it's happened in a lot of places.
Right, and you can just barely get under that bridge now, right? I think you need to almost win the lottery to get underneath, right? In order to make it out.
It's a challenge.
It's a challenge.
It's a challenge, yeah.
Okay, any other questions, folks? We've got our LWRP consistency determination drafted by Ted, which incorporates some of the recent comments that we received as early as today, as a matter of fact, which, you know, we're not going to make any decisions, any secret decisions tonight, obviously, because we're continuing the public hearing to the 29th, and so, you know, there's always a chance we can make further changes to the local law. Were there any other questions? I think we tackled a lot of that. You know, there were questions about the boat club and existing. It looks like it would be, from what we understand, it conforming, right? We've got definitions for boat clubs and boat ramps and boat docks, unless there's activities there that we're unaware of. That would not render it non-conforming. Is that correct, Ted, from our limited understanding anyway?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. All right, any other questions? We have received some written comments, again. And we may get more. Any more questions for Ted while we've got him remotely? No? Okay, so let's submit your drafts for 2, 3, and the consensus, I can't even speak tonight, consistency determination under LWRP. We'll have those documents available for the 29th clerk's office as well. All right, I think that's all. Ted, I think that's all we need you for this evening.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Good.
Thank you very much,
All
and stay healthy.
Okay, thank you, Robert. Bye.
Thanks, Ted.
Good night, Ted.
Good night.
All right, we're juggling around. We've done reorg, local law D. We've really addressed, I think, all the things we need to address. We're continuing the public hearing until the 29th.
Robert, there is a resolution. Could you consider that specific resolution?
I
if you didn't
will.
do that already?
Yep, that'd be number 3. Dated tonight, establishing a date for continued public hearing regarding the adoption of local law, now we'll call it D3, proposed of 2024, updating and amending the town zoning law. We recite that the local law was first introduced last year, back on November 20th. We adopted a resolution for the public hearing on the 10th of December, and based upon information presented at the hearing and subsequently written comments as well. The study of the matter by the town board, an amended form, D1 was proposed, and then we have referred local law D to the county. I've received their comments and incorporated their comments into our thinking. They reported it was a matter of local concern with their comments, which we received back in December 26th. Pursuant to a resolution of the town board, on the 10th, the public hearing continued on the 30th of December at 7:35, and all parties had an opportunity to speak. We now have had conducted this evening we'll call local law D2 proposed of 2024. We have received comments and continue to make our study of both the draft law and the facts involved and the input that we've received from the community. Folks have been provided with yet another opportunity to make comments, and based upon the information presented at the hearing, including the comments of both our planning board and county planning, the study of the matter by the town board, we now are proposing a local law, we'll call it D3, so people understand that there have been minor but some changes made to the draft. And we are continuing the public hearing then to January 29th, 2025 at 7:35, and it shall be published, the notice of the hearing and the documents available at the town clerk's office. Resolution number 3, and I so move. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Christine. All in favor?
I just have a nomenclature question before we proceed. So because the law was introduced in 2024, it
Yes.
remains Law D, D2, D3, D3 at this point
Proposed
of 2024, although we are now in 2025.
Once enacted, it gets a number instead of a letter, and it
Right.
gets the year of adoption.
Thank you.
Okay.
Aye.
Aye. There's a lot of ayes there. Okay. We've dotted our ayes. Okay, the motion passes. We are, resolution passes. However, next resolution is agenda item number 4, approving the upgrade expenses. We have, by virtue of approving the grants for this use, have approved these expenses, but for formality's sake, we need to authorize the approval of the upgrade initial payment. We know that the upgrade is going to cost, estimated from Central Hudson to be $48,000, 25% of which is due almost immediately. To progress the project, for the folks at home, all of these funds are being paid for by Clean Energy Communities grant awards that we've received. All of the clean energy projects we've been doing over the years have amassed us a certain amount of points, and those points have been turned in, if you will, for grant award levels. For this project, we received both $100,000 and now another $175,000. So a total of $275,000 will be appropriated towards the upgrade and study and construction towards this project. This is, again, for the folks at home, this will be our second community solar project. If you were lucky, fortunate, visionary, whatever the correct terms are, to have joined our first one that went live on December 31st, 2019. And you are an average household, both in terms of assessment and in terms of electric usage. It's quite possible that you saved more money by joining that community solar farm than you paid back in town taxes. That's how significant the savings were. That's the good news for those of you at home. The bad news is that because of the way the PSC determines how the these net metering programs work. We will not be able to offer to residents who join the second system that type of pricing. It's all according to current market conditions, but there will be a discount to that. It provides us with an opportunity to give you predictable and stable pricing related to clean energy, homegrown clean energy. And so get ready. It's our expectation that we'll be able to complete this project in 2025, and we'll be reaching out to you as we did back in 2019 to see those of you who will be interested in joining this community solar. All right, we are in resolution 4, authorizing the approval of the Central Hudson upgrade initial payment as determined by the Coordinated Electric System Interconnection Review. I think I've described the cost for the upgrade at the moment. $48,129, 25% of which is due now, and then I think we have another 120 days for the remainder. And I will happily move resolution number 4. Who would like to second it? Jacob Testa.
Christine got it already.
I got it already.
You did, right?
I would love to, but.
Sorry.
You're not
trying to help you
sharing.
move along.
How were you described tonight? Robust? What?
I guess so. Robust participant in the
Robust
discussion. Yeah.
participant.
Yep.
I like that. I
Hi.
think for, I, for, and as a reminder to the folks at home, Christine Kane has chaired the planning board here in our community and the planning board in Tivoli, and been involved robustly for
Apparently
many years. All right, we're on resolution number 5, dated January 14th, approving, Ty and Bond has given us that figure. They have to help us with the specs. We gave them basically all the information from the CSER application. So this is a task order for them to, it's only one W in West. I think we got the updated one. $5,000. Town Board of Town of Red Hook accepts and executed by the supervisor the time bond task order associated with the project in the aggregate amount not to exceed $5,000. Resolution number 5. If only Jacob could move this resolution.
I'm gonna move it.
He's gonna move it. Move it. Who would like
I'll
to second?
second.
Or one of you? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. So we heard a little bit about, we're on 6, I apologize, CDBG grant opportunities. So one of the things, let's go to that, shall we? What did Warner Wolf used to say? Let's go to the videotape, right? You know who Warner Wolf is, because you also lived in the Washington area at some point, right?
Yep.
And he was a sportscaster there.
Yep. Let's go to the videotape.
Let's go to the videotape. Okay, CDBG. We've heard Brandy talk about 2 potential options, and just a reminder for the folks at home, before we apply for CDBG grant funds, we hold a public hearing to not only hear your thoughts and ideas, but also to posit some suggestions that we either have or people have made, to get your feedback on that. Most folks are familiar with community development block grant funding. Here's just some stats from the recent meeting we had, the supervisors and mayors. So priorities, economic development, job creation for low-mod persons, public facilities, repairs to existing construction of new sidewalks, we heard sidewalks, municipal parks and recreation areas, improvements, particularly removal of architectural barriers. New recreation facilities will be considered based on demonstrated need. Improvements designed to mitigate flooding, critical infrastructure, water and wastewater. So, development and maintenance of it, new techniques, stormwater rental housing, creation of new rental housing through new construction, rehabilitation of vacant residential buildings, and adaptive reuse. Transitional and permanent housing for the homeless.
Didn't Brandy say that for this grant, because it's restricted to certain income areas geographically within the town?
You wanted to know what that looked like?
Yes.
Funny you should mention that.
Huh?
Purple.
Got it.
Now, that's for areas, so you can do projects, a whole host of projects in those areas. You can still do projects outside of those areas as long as they are designed to meet a population, right? So if you're doing something that's primarily for seniors, that is deemed to be suitable. If you're doing a project that is to increase accessibility, the senior part is they're assumed to be low mod because they're senior. I mean, there's been discussion about transitional housing and finding a location in northern Dutchess County. I know that, you know, that potentially could be a village project, right? I know the villages, we've been working to find place for overnight warming shelters for the few individuals that we at least are aware of that.
I think that for that, the village makes the most sense in a lot of ways rather than the town. I mean, it's not a huge, you know, distance to get down here, but I think a lot of the things that, you know, people would be utilizing that sort of facility would also want to utilize it a little closer to the core of the village.
It's kind of walkable.
Yeah.
The services, well, that's part of the discussion is where would you locate a facility based upon proximity to other things, but also, and importantly, the services.
And I liked both of the ideas that we discussed earlier in the meeting. I think I should probably go forward with whatever we think will be the most competitive application for this particular funder, but philosophically, I want to keep trying to get money for the sewer as much as we can. I think we are all in on that project, and I would love to see us be able to bring in as much.
Yeah, it does say here, one application per municipality, except for a second if you're doing an eligible housing activity. So I guess our question before, can you do more than one? No, unless one of them is housing.
Housing.
Right.
So I'm
But
wondering.
I'm with Julia on the sewer thing.
Unless we learn that it, for some reason, would be not competitive or not enough money to be worthwhile or something like that.
Right.
You can use every cent we can
Yeah, we
get.
can. That's kind of what I think too.
It's not a cheap project.
So I wonder if we can do an allocation for that portion of it, for the sewer extension through that. We
It's
could
pretty
look at
much,
that.
yeah, I mean, that's pretty much where it is.
Yeah, I don't know how you would parse the project in a way that
Mhm.
meets the criteria.
Yeah, because it's going but down both sides of 9,
Right.
but it would go for.
Well, because I have
Pay
one
one side,
side,
exactly.
right?
How does that work? We'll have to ask, you know, that's what the phone was invented for. And then, you know, potentially, because we did receive, or Rupco received, the $3.4 million for the Cookingham project, for the infrastructure, the roadways, water, sewer collection system, but then there was the portion of the package plan associated with that development. And the question becomes, would that be a good sort of joint application? It's the village owned plant expansion, There we run into the question of how quickly will it all be done and,
Right.
you know, and all that. But it's for housing and it's for affordable housing.
Is there plant located in the one portion of the village that isn't purple?
The one portion that isn't purple.
No, I think it's not.
It looks like their plant is located in the knot.
I mean, if the service is for.
I don't think it matters because this is for strictly affordable housing development. So I don't know that would be.
Well, the grant that ROCO got was for certain specified things related to housing.
Yes,
But
sewer
not that
collection, water, right, but not related to housing.
So this grant theoretically could supplement that for the actual housing because the housing is for low to moderate income.
It could, but there are programs, Bill, that they'll tap into and actually more significant in dollar terms.
What is, you know, would it be more appropriate for the village to just apply for that one?
Yeah, it is in the village.
Well, or could it be a joint program? Because we own the property, they own the package plant.
Well, we could certainly like sign on to it and
Yeah.
explain the intent is to transfer the property to
Mhm.
them. But I wouldn't necessarily want us to be the grantee and manage that project because it's really a village project and a village system.
Well, we would collect the funds, but we already have the IMA in place. So the money would go ultimately to the village for that portion of the project. You know, those are the two outstanding issues right now with Cookingham is when is the village gonna have the zoning in place? And two is when is the package plant going to have expansion capacity for the development? So anything we
Neither
could
of
do.
which we have any control over.
Well,
So I think it would be, I
yeah,
mean, sure, we could call it a joint application, but really
yeah.
our contribution, so to speak, is the land. Everything else is under their control, under the village's control.
Yeah.
I guess part of the reason I was asking about whether it made sense to do a joint project before is because there's potential for more money.
Right. Right.
A single applicant can
Right.
only get up to a certain limit and a joint applicant
Right.
is a higher limit. So if that's something that, you know, is to the benefit of the
I
project.
didn't see anything here about that, I could ask them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the
Well, I wonder
last.
whether you could almost tie both things together. Whether you could, you know, as part of the same narrative, you have increase to the package plant capacity to support affordable housing development on the north side of the village, as well as design for extension of the sewer on the south side of the village
Yeah.
for economic development. Like maybe it's possible
Yeah.
to tie all that together.
Yeah, it's an all of the above.
But it's still wastewater.
Yeah.
Right, one applicant, 200,000, joint 400, affordable housing, public facilities, water, wastewater, economic development, job creation. I mean, we could check off all these
Yeah, that's what I'm
boxes.
thinking.
Just get the money out of it, we can actually get it done.
I mean, one of the things, while you
No,
were
but-
being
because we
robust
also
over
don't
on that
have-
end, we were talking about, you know, a lot of these boxes would be checked off, affordable housing, public facilities, economic development, if we were to go up and
Jacob and
down.
I were discussing this exact thing, and,
Were you?
you know, what I had said was that we don't have a lot of time to put together the application.
Right,
You know, the village is moving somewhat slowly on the zoning still. And so, you know, we have a project, our sewer project, we're ready to go.
yeah,
We probably would end up in the same place, okay, so we get two things, $400,000 would be like 200,000 each, so if we went ourselves and got $200,000, we could be in the same place.
mhm.
So, that's my thinking.
So it sounds like a conversation that the county is maybe needed just to understand
Mhm.
Right.
eligibility and.
Well, they'll guide us, we'll bounce some of this around and they'll give us some informal feedback. Okay.
Yeah, it does, I mean, just,
Also, what's the, do we know can't remember what's the next meetings from the village, so that if we were gonna do a joint one, is all that gonna line up
Soon.
for the approvals?
Yeah. Yes, because don't forget, it's letter of interest by February 3rd, so we still have 3 weeks, not quite 3 weeks,
Does the public
to
hearing
letter of
have to
interest.
precede the letter?
No,
Okay.
it just needs to precede the application, which is March 3rd.
And we have to schedule a public hearing.
Yeah, she just
Which
asked
is-
about
okay,
that.
sorry,
It just
sorry.
has to be.
Yeah, I didn't know where that fell
Yeah,
relative
it's a
to the
long
letter
day.
of intent
Yeah.
and the actual
Um,
certification.
Okay, so let's, we'll bounce around some ideas with the county, and they're good with advice about what they think might be strongest, or, yeah, okay. Thank you. All right, Panda. Hello, Panda. Resolution to approve extension of Panda IMA. Every 5 years, we're supposed to update the allocation. Here's the budget, here's the subscribers. Notice who has the most subscribers in the 5 municipalities. Right uptown. A list of inventory. And folks, if you haven't been using the Panda, watching it on the app, watching it on YouTube, it's got chaptering, it's so much more accessible for the folks. And now, again, back on cable TV, where those 1,089 subscribers in the town of Red Hook could once again go back on the channel. The Panda budget for 2025 is estimated to be about $96,000, which is very small when you consider what's required. We also invite you to take this opportunity, as we had years ago, if there are things that you would like, that you think the public would like to watch on the public access channel. That's what they're there for. Maybe there's some programming you have access to or you enjoy watching. So please do get in touch with them. We have our relatively new franchise agreement with Spectrum that we talk about briefly in this agreement. And then we talk about timeframes for submitting for the budget in August of this year for the ensuing year. And the term of the agreement would remain in place for 5 years to 2029. And it may be extended for additional periods by written agreement. Any questions, folks? Do we have, are we on 60?
Number 5, I think.
Number 6, sir.
Oh, 6?
Yep.
Which was number 5?
Task order for Tide Bond.
One less gold star for Mr. Hammond.
It wasn't on.
Okay, we have a resolution. Where are you, resolution? Number 6, authorizing the execution of a rider to the intermunicipal cooperation agreement regarding public access Northern Dutchess area. That's the towns of Rhinebeck, Red Hook, villages of Rhinebeck, Red Hook, and Tivoli. And I so move. Is there a second?
Second.
Nobody wants to get out of here. Okay, I think that was Christine by a hair.
Julia.
Julia by a hair. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Okay, local government efficiency grant. This is a little trickier, and this is due in 10 days. Nothing like Folks, if you don't already know, if there's a grant opportunity out there, we try to get it. That's really the idea. What we are charged with doing is ensuring that we can leverage your funding. It's one of the reasons why we're able to say that the town actual taxes today are less than what they were 10 years ago. All right, let's get to local government efficiency grant.
Blanket.
It did not make it to the digital copy.
No, because
Okay.
you're already
No,
in
you're in benefits already.
We are,
Yeah.
skip did. Okay, so let's talk about it briefly. There's about $6 million allocated, I believe it is this year. It's generally between $6 and $8 million. They're looking for projects with cooperating municipalities. They're looking for some innovation.
We've got our court
I was gonna say, is the court is the court of any cost?
combining thing and some other things like that, right? Through this grant in the past?
Hang on. We did get it in our copies though. You didn't get it?
Yeah.
No,
Wait,
Okay.
Is it underneath the benefits too?
This is at the bottom.
unless it's attached to the
This
benefit.
big thing, yeah.
Yeah, it's disabled with the benefits.
Yeah. Faith, I think accidentally attached it to the previous item. Okay.
I thought this was on the benefit commission.
You have this, you do, okay.
It's on.
All right, so let's just very quickly, I don't think she's got it out of order, but let's just make sure that it's not here. No. Okay.
So this is due on the 24th.
Yeah, like I said, 10 days. Nothing better than $8 million allocated for projects, including approximately $7.2 million for implementation grants and $800,000 for planning grants. Maximum funding for an implementation grant is $250,000 for each local government, not to exceed 1.25. Maximum funding for a planning grant is $20,000 each for local government, not to exceed $100,000 in total. Maximum funding for a qualification grant is $20,000 for regional local projects. Implementation grants require 10% match, planning 50% match. Eligible expenses include capital improvements and equipment, legal and consultant, transitional personnel costs not to exceed 3 years. Ineligible expenses are recurring, contingency, indirect, operating, any expenses deemed ineligible by Department of State, and any expenditures that are previously funded through LGE or some of the other programs that they mention here. Okay, preparing the application, priority points, okay, so any regional project or local projects being implemented as a result of previously funded planning grants, so if you've already done the planning through them, that'll get you some bonus points. Project need intermunicipal agreements among the applicants, scale of municipal participation, degree of public engagement and preparedness, potential constraints, blah, 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 okay. They have a scoring scale, expected number of co-applicants, number of services and functions to be reviewed, planning experiences, deliverables, budget and work plan. Obviously, they're looking at looking at the smart growth impact, MBWE, thank you.
Is time bond MBWE?
What's that?
Is time bond MBWE?
Good question, I think so, bless you. Good question.
Okay.
Are you developing a plan for local government consolidation or dissolution under GML? Following questions determine a minimum eligibility class. These questions are not scored. Okay, so we could talk about, now that years after we got that grant to study shared courts, we could talk about now planning for them. And
That
the
was
planning
the study by
program.
LeBerge,
Yeah.
and that was funded with a grant.
And now that the village has reviewed and okayed it, we could now look at a planning grant to how would that work? How would we locate it? What type of renovations? Would we need to expand our property here? So on and so forth.
Are there any pieces of the sewer project that would be?
Well, there is a
appropriate?
water and wastewater.
Yeah, and we have the IMA in place.
We're gonna get there. Okay, so that was target functions, ITS, including cybersecurity, emergency services, countywide and multi-county code enforcement and planning, water or wastewater management systems, improving the efficiency of water or wastewater infrastructure operations on a regional basis. So here we go again, why have a separate sewer plant? Let's share with our municipality.
When does the money have to be spent by? Or allocated for expenditure?
You know, on this one, I think we have a little more time. So we already have our IMA, project scale, 2 municipalities, you got 1.3 municipalities, 2 countywide and multi-county. Project planning, comprehensive plan. engagement,
So this is-
implementation.
Okay, implementation grants are 10% cash match. Planning grants are 50% cash
Yep.
match.
Mhm. Estimated return on investment. Who wants to do that one? Yeah. I mean, certainly we can do the joint sewer initiative. And I think we've got a lot of the work done.
I was gonna say, I think maybe it should be that a lot of the text can be repurposed from prior
Yeah.
applications, right?
Yeah. It's all about how we'll improve infrastructure.
Could they just come out with this?
Late last year. Yeah, there's not a lot of need for this, but this is a recurring annual grant program. We've applied for something in the past. Gosh, I think 6 or 7 years ago, we weren't awarded.
When's this due?
24th.
Today is, so we have to.
14th.
So we have to.
Well, we
This is the
still have our 22nd
right.
meeting, so we can approve the grant application. I mean, if you authorize me, we can work on 2
Well,
ideas.
they've got smart growth questions here, you know, does the proposed project maintain, improve, expand, or build infrastructure,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, certainly the
How to do
TMP
that.
would align with that.
yeah,
Is it located in a municipal center?
yeah.
Yeah.
Is it an area designated for concentrated development?
Yep.
Units.
So,
Checks all
Lots
the
of
boxes.
points.
right,
Cost
So you
savings,
want
avoided
to-
cost implementation. Well, the question is, do we want to, if you authorize me, I can work with our engineers.
Well,
to-
the choices we've come up with so far
Right.
are the sewer project or the courts.
Sewer or the planning grant for the courts, and we can rank them 1 and 2. Sounds like I think I know which one you guys are leaning towards, right, Jacob?
Yeah.
I think so.
For 1, and then explore 2 as a backup for a planning grant. Oh, what did this one say? We can do 2? Can we do 2? Or do we not want to do 2 because we want
I mean, it
to?
would, it
I
would
don't
be
want to
hard
give
to
them the
compete against
option.
ourselves,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I don't want
No.
to give them the option to pick something that they might view
The
as
cheap
more.
one.
Yeah,
Cheaper.
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I mean, we just have to keep applying for every wastewater one we can find.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, okay. Let's do it.
All right.
I think we've got a lot of the information.
Yeah.
Yep.
yeah.
We'll
it
whip
shouldn't be
it
that
together.
difficult,
Um,
Says the person who doesn't have to write it.
So if it's two, if it's.
So
if
look,
it's two-
let's get the number. Let's see if we can just whip something together now.
So we
When will they make?
A resolution, let's do a motion
to authorize you.
authorize the supervisor to work with the town's engineer to prepare an application for a local government efficiency grant as it relates to the shared infrastructure project known as the extension of the sewer district throughout the traditional neighborhood development, to apply for, do we have a dollar amount here? Do we want to?
The maximum amount available.
The maximum amount available.
That should cover
Is
it.
Chris Shaw still on the phone?
Up to not to exceed, since there are 2 municipalities that I'm aware of, and it's 250, right? Am I in the right grant here? Is this 250 per, or was that the other one?
That was the other one.
That was the
That
other
was
one.
CDBG. So aren't you set up to the maximum amount available?
Well, it says total project cost calculation for the match.
Chris, how
Total
are you with that
maximum-
language?
Yeah, you're right, I think, it's on page 2. Total maximum funding for an implementation grant is $250,000 for each local government, not to exceed, but we're not in any danger of exceeding. So it would be 500,000 totally.
I didn't hear that, Julie. Could you repeat that? On what?
On page 2,
Yeah, I'm kidding. Okay. Grant amount not to exceed 500,000 for joint sewer, we'll call it sewer extension.
Does the village have to vote on, in other words, it's 250 for each local government. We haven't, that has to be submitted by the 24th. Does the village have to adopt a resolution as well by that time?
Yeah, probably.
Do we know when their next meeting is?
Probably will.
Otherwise, we can only apply for 250.
well, I mean, even if we authorize more than 500, you can come in under, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
well,
And then if for some reason the village does not want to participate, we can just apply on our own.
I don't know if you can do that.
but then we would be limited to applying for
To
250.
250.
To 250, yeah, I think it's a shared, it's a shared project one way or the other. It's their plan.
It looks like they have a workshop meeting on the 23rd.
Day before
Yeah.
too?
The village has
Oh.
a workshop meeting on the 23rd.
I thought that'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll have everything
It's
done.
before the 24th, but it is
Right.
right before the 24th.
I mean, there's not a lot of days in between now and then.
There's not.
Okay.
But our engineers are going to be doing the heavy lifting for this, so.
I think that was a motion.
Mm-hmm.
Did
you make it?
Did we see anything about resolutions when they be due, blah, 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 blah?
So we'd be looking at 10% match for implementation.
Yeah. Page 17, page 17.
What
Okay.
about it?
Well,
There's
it says
a
like,
May.
If we're thinking it's $500,000, right? And then let's
Why they're
say,
tapping it?
yeah,
So on page
They're
8,
just doing like even numbers, reverse engineering.
ours is like 600 something.
Yeah.
okay, so page 18, there's a resolutions and local agreements, municipal resolutions or intermunicipal agreements executed to implement the project, illustrate local support and capacity to implement the project. So what I would say is reading this is that we already have our IMA, and we already have all the information that would demonstrate to the state that we're moving forward. We can have our resolution. We have a motion right now, but we can do a formal resolution and hold our 22nd meeting. I would imagine the IMA is sufficient commitment, and it does, the language say may submit. So let's keep our 22nd, let's find out from them whether or not that really would be necessary under this situation.
Okay, so did you make that motion?
I think I did.
Okay, I'll second it
Thank you, Christine.
robustly.
Robustly. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Everybody wants to talk infrastructure. You guys are so fascinated with what's going on underneath. Let's talk about what could go on. Ooh la la. There's still more things to go.
Do we have to pick one tonight on this package?
Well, employee health care, I mean, they'd love it if we could, but did you have some thoughts on the health care plan? Where are we, people?
Our thoughts on the new prescription for my glasses.
Yeah, I know, I don't make these tables up. So if you look at what is scheduled, once again, healthcare premiums,
8%.
8% increase.
Stay with the
It's
same.
just- For the folks at home, and appreciate how we've been able to keep taxes lower after all these years, I want to just let you know some of the annual increases. We've had to deal with 21%, 15%, 15%, 9%, 8%, 6%, now back to 8%. It's really a challenge even to stay within the cap, and then on top of it, to do all those capital projects. So, net of net depends on utilization for the HRA funding. We could be looking at somewhere around 7 to 10% increase once all that is said and done. I did query our healthcare broker about, which ones might we just focus on outside of the, renewing the existing one. If they had a couple of recommendations, what might be 2 or 3. And so the response I got was, might look at that MVP, EPO, Bronze 6 HSA. So where's that? Bronze 6?
6.
Right here, I think I've got it, right?
Yeah, but that really raises the individual deductible quite a bit. I was looking at the silver 3s, but because we have national network now and they have a regional network option. And that seems to reduce the deductibles.
But then I have the co-pays.
In a previous place of work, we were debating between those plans, and the national network was really important to some people. I don't know
Yeah.
quite what the difference is in terms of what you can access, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think here regionally, the question sometimes is, do you need to go to hospital for special surgery down in the city? But aren't they now branching out? But
They have.
I'm sorry to look to you, as if you've had a lot of work done, but,
No, some of them, well, for example, Albany Med has now
Yeah.
expanded into our region,
yeah.
as Westchester Med has also
Yeah, yeah.
expanded up. So I think as these healthcare large conglomerates, they're buying up these smaller
Mhm.
smaller providers, and the question is though, does it still keep you within the region?
Right, yeah, that's
I
what I
don't
don't
know.
know, right, and I don't know
Well,
if, you know, like
the-
Lawrence Academy or
Right.
something
So
in the
the
city.
que-
The
yeah,
third column over
And even if it's owned by the same company, you don't know.
is the national network. It's
Uh,
the
right
silver,
next to it.
silver
Silver 3
3 HSA national network.
Right, that has lower deductibles.
It has lower deductibles. It does have a
Co-pays,
copay.
Co-pays. I
But
think
the
that's
other
the
one-
challenge is
Yeah,
the
but that's also
patient-
But it's a
12%
lower,
higher.
but it's a lower deductible.
It's 12%
But that's
more.
more than
1%
just
premium.
renewing our current.
Right, but with,
Where are we?
yes, but with the lower utilization, it could provide some savings.
But and then the next one over, so what we'd have to ask is what's the regional network, right?
Yeah, because that one's a 3% reduction.
That's a 3% reduction, right?
I mean, the other thing that I was looking at was, other than the current plan for which everything's paid for after the deductible, all these others, these other two to the right, they have co-pays, and depending on what your utilization is, if it's, you have hospitalization, you have a family, someone's hospitalization, you could make up the delta between the deductible and your co-pays pretty quickly, depending on circumstances. Yeah, like inpatient hospitals, a $500 copay. All you need is a couple people or family members who are on the plan, and suddenly the difference in the annual deductible is chewed up.
I think that's the challenge. I mean, certainly that silver program would provide some savings for the taxpayers, but
Yes.
I'm concerned about that level of copay.
Well, when do we have to make the decisions? When do we have to?
Well, they'd love it if we could do it tonight, but I mean, we need to do it this month because we need to provide 30 days notice if we're making a change certainly to the unit.
Could we do it next week?
We can at the 22nd, yeah.
I mean,
We
I
can
don't
do it
think
next
it's
week.
unreasonable to ask for more week.
So the other one that they pointed out, excuse me, while I look at my notes here. Something to consider. So it was that bronze 6, the CDPHP, qualified HD, EPO.
CDPHP, which one?
Okay, so that would be fourth one, current plan, and then 3 over from the right.
On the second page.
Which
On the
page?
second page, exactly.
It's
Second page.
CDPHP, okay.
PHP, I think they're right in the middle of
Silver.
negotiating now with the hospital for special
Services.
surgery. So number 421 up. No, she said 421, that's 320. Where's 421? Up, third page.
8% down.
Third page, that's a higher deductible.
What, sorry, where are we?
Third page, fifth one from the left. Bronze, 421. If you look for the
I see it.
CDPH.
Here it is.
421. You should take a look at that. That has a 12% less premium.
That's a big, yeah, that is a high
Higher,
deductible.
high deductible, but still the net is a
Everything's-
1% savings. I mean,
12% savings. Yeah,
uh,
but $14,000 family deductible is a lot.
right, but if you do a utilization expectation, I think we should run that at different utilization rates to see if it provides some savings. The nice thing about this one is that it protects the employee against those inpatient. It's 100% after deductible.
Yeah, it's 100% all, there's no copays there.
So the risk is to the town that there's just like a change in utilization that's higher than expectation, but honestly, this looks pretty good. Slight additional cost to dependents under age 19. I don't think we have a lot of those. I think this one's worthy of looking into further, right? If you want to wait till next week. And then the other one was the United Healthcare. Bronze Choice Open Access NG. Right, Bronze. Oh, okay, so we're at the very end, I think. Bronze Choice Open Access. There's a couple different options there.
Wait, but that one is, it's a 20% co-insurance on everything after deductible.
No, not the very last
Bronze.
one.
Oh, not the very last one, I'm sorry.
But it is a high deductible for,
There's a much higher deductible.
well,
Yeah. Lower premium. Higher risk with the deductible.
I don't like that one.
that one's
as
also
much.
more expensive.
Huh?
The Latin, the,
The very last one?
Yeah,
No,
it's also
So that's 3% less.
Minus 3%. More expensive
Oh,
than the
sorry.
one I was speaking about.
well, I was looking at the annual difference, the
Yeah.
bottom one,
Right.
sorry.
That'll come out around
Yeah.
the same. I don't know, I'm kind of liking CDPHP.
Well, I mean, the thing about CDPHP is it is more of a regional health insurer, and since we're here, I mean, I know people who use them, and also, even I think Bard College has used them as their, I mean, because they're in this region, they're more like a local customer.
Yeah. I don't know that you can get hospital or special surgery from
I
that.
was gonna say, they don't go
That's,
as far as out, MVP I think is a bigger
MVP is bigger.
regional.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, I would like us to look at the MVP Silver.
That's where we were before.
The MVP Silver with the regional network, or?
Yeah, well, there's a national option and a regional, so if we're gonna check utilization. The national one is 12% higher, but the regional one is 3% lower.
Lower.
Right.
And also but the regional one also has copays.
But lower deductibles.
The lower deductibles.
Well, right, and the renewal of our current is similar to the silver, but it's just, there's no copays, right?
Right.
Mm.
And, I mean, if you're gonna change coverage, but you stay within the same plan, I think it's easier for people to manage that than if you go from,
True.
MVP to United or something else, and there's changes in coverage or whatever, but. So it's really, I mean, first off, it's a question of, the 8%, whether that's feasible in the first place. And then
We
if-
budgeted for it, we do get a bit of a sense of what to apply for and what to
Right.
get approved for.
Well, so that's the thing, is
Yeah.
if we budgeted for it, we seem to be online. you know, if our people are happy with that plan,
How could
Or
they not?
then
How could
maybe-
they not be? You know, it's got
Pays for
everything.
everything.
I think it's really just a question of the national versus the regional network. That's what we kind of have to look into.
Okay. Let's ask
Right?
more questions.
Yeah.
Let's make a decision on the 22nd.
All right.
We can get out of here while it's still PM. Okay.
Supplemental funding for the bridge.
Resolution authorizing supplemental funding, Salt Hill Bridge. This is, we have to spend a little more money on right-of-way acquisition. And we got some funding for that, we're approving some funding for that, I should say. And
This is number 7.
That's 8,
8.
because we had that verbal one.
No, well, that wasn't a resolution, that was just a motion.
Oh, the local government efficiency grant was just a motion?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that was a resolution. Okay.
Right, Diana, we're on
Yes,
7?
7.
authorizing the
Thank you.
implementation and funding in the first instance of 100% of the federal aid and state Marcus SLA program aid eligible costs of a transportation federal aid project for Salt Hill Road Bridge supplemental funding and appropriating funds therefore. The resolution goes on to talk about the bridge replacement project, which folks are familiar with, and then the town of Red Hook desires to advance the project by making a commitment of 100% of the non-federal share of the cost of right-of-way acquisition. When they do bridge projects, you know, they oftentimes have to encroach on adjoining properties, so they have to acquire easements, right-of-way, sometimes temporary, sometimes not. The sum of $33,787 is hereby appropriated from unappropriated reserve fee fund. Not sure, I think this would be unappropriated reserve A fund. Let's make that change. And made available to cover the cost of participation in the above phase of the project, together with the initial amount of $250,000, for a total of $283,787 for preliminary engineering and design, right-of-way incidentals, and right-of-way acquisition. Further resolved that in the event the project costs not covered by federal aid, state aid, or New York Bridge funding exceed the amount appropriated by the town of Red Hook Board, shall convene as soon as possible to appropriate any excess amount. And I so move resolution number lucky 7. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jacob. All in favor, if there's not any further discussion?
Aye.
Okay. Before we all lose our battery energy, can we discuss just very briefly? So there's been a law in place related to the code. There's been guidance that we should institute local codes as it relates to battery energy storage systems.
Is that coming from NYSERDA?
That's what it is.
Yeah. I know the model code is.
The model's
from
coming from
NYSERDA.
NYSERDA. I think, well, all of this intersects with the electrical code, but also, yes, climate goals, obviously.
Yeah.
CLCPA. I did do that correctly, right? But suffice it to say that people are coming in and getting individual systems, which is really great to see. If you're not familiar, there are companies now out there that can give you, as we work towards being a more resilient community, you can have generators in many forms, not only natural gas, propane fueled generators, but batteries that can power up your house, and including, Jacob, our the town's building and zoning F-150 that can power your house when the lights go out for up to 3 days. So we should have some regulations regarding not only the smaller systems, but the bigger systems. And so think in terms of some of these community solar projects, think in terms of larger important infrastructure backup. So whether it's our water infrastructure, sewer infrastructure, whether it's our educational institutions. I was surprised to find out that, you know, not all of our important critical assets have battery storage or generators to keep them running. In fact, it was not that long ago, right, that the kids at Mill Road would be dismissed because they had when there was no power, because they couldn't flush the toilets, if you will. So, anyway, this is a model law that NYSERDA has produced. I'm not asking you to do anything tonight, except to just read it and give some thought to it and see how we might use it as a template and work with it to establish potentially a code provision.
If
on
we
this.
decided that we wanted to proceed, what would the process be? Would we go directly to our planner? Would we try to involve like the energy committee? You know, we've in the past tried to involve committees in like pre-drafting, but it can take a while.
Well, I know that the Energy Committee is eager to see us provide some guidance in this area because they believe that, and you know this issue, maybe not everybody at home knows this, but battery storage is the key to removing peaker plants. These are oftentimes the very dirty plants that have been built across our nation and other places. They serve really only one purpose, which is to capture that point in time, or those points in time where there's peak energy demand, and so they can easily transform and make a difference in emissions. Australia has been sort of the poster child about this. They've had many grids now backed up by battery energy systems, and so you see a lot of coal plants around various areas being taken offline because of larger battery energy storage systems. So they're eager to see it. So I think it would be appropriate to get their input on it and to get our building and zoning guys input, and certainly get our planner input on this.
In here, what I read is it's a requirement if you do this, it has to be in your comp plan. And so, I mean, when I read that, I immediately thought, well, guess what, we're redoing our comp plan now. It could take 2 years to get it done, but at least if we introduce it now to whoever we award that contract to, and make sure that they're aware of this and it's something we want, then you know it will be addressed. It just may not be as fast as we want.
Well, I think we're gonna need to, get it moving.
Okay. Well, and maybe that we find that it is generally justified under the existing.
Start by sending it to the energy.
Well, it says you can, but there's things you have to do. There's some things that
Next.
are written.
Okay, I think we know who we need to refer this to get their input. All right. Correspondence, do we have correspondence?
This is the chipper thing.
We took care of the chipper.
Yeah.
We do have Association of Towns, we have to designate the delegate. I'll be attending once again this year.
Is that, do we do that by motion or do we need a resolution?
Well, funny you should mention that. We can do that by motion. And here is the certificate of designation. Do we have an alternate? Is there an alternate going? Do we know? We don't know yet.
Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna go.
Okay.
I looked at the agenda, the tentative agenda, and there was really not a lot there of
Okay.
great interest to me. There were a
Okay.
couple things, but it would have been
Okay.
inexpensive.
I would like to, but I can't help you out, Jim.
Okay.
I'm looking
So,
into it.
what's that?
I'm looking into it.
You're looking
Yeah.
into it, okay.
Well, since you're the only person that maybe might
Maybe,
could
okay.
potentially
Why
go.
don't- why don't we name you as an alternate?
Just put me
Right.
down, and then you can
Right.
say if I can.
And then, don't get hit by a bus, Robert. Okay, motion to appoint the town supervisor as the voting delegate with councilperson Testa to be the alternate for the Association of Towns Annual Conference for the folks at home. We get continuing education. 933 municipalities are invited to gather in Times Square of all places at the marquee conference where we have continued education seminars. And so we appoint a delegate for voting matters. We're going to discuss the platform, I think, at our 22nd meeting. Shall we do that?
Yeah.
It is getting late. Is there anything else, folks, before us tonight?
Do we need to vote on that?
Before, did we vote on it? I
Mm,
thought we
no.
almost did. All in favor? Who moved it?
I thought
Nobody
you
moved
did.
it.
I thought I moved it. Who seconded it?
I'll second.
Bill seconded it.
Aye.
Aye.
We all liked it.
And
You
then
tell
we have
it's
this
been a
other
night.
correspondence. Do we need to do anything with this for the CAC person?
No, we're gonna be doing our committees and our boards,
For the next one?
and the second meeting of the month, because we, wanna talk about the committees and some of the reimagining, that we're thinking about for some of those committees. Okay. Any other business before us? If not, I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. We're going to entertain a motion to go into a brief attorney-client session. First, we'd like to wish you health and happiness. It's the winter time, and while we may not all be out there circulating, there are lots of viruses, so don't get any. Okay, good night, thanks.